welcome back to another episode of Curiosity Collective, where we're amplifying unique stories that are outside the box. Today I've got Erika Shelton on with me. Hey Erika, what's up? Thanks for joining us. I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, hi, my name is Erika, and I live in Fremont, Nebraska. I guess like the basics, I have 2 kiddos. When it comes to the work that I do, I study, for the last 7 years, I've studied astrology, human design, and gene keys. I've also gotten my Reiki Master certification, and I kind of blend all of these modalities together to help people discover who they are and let go of everything that they are not.
Awesome. So a lot of these terms are a little abnormal to the everyday person. Yeah. What got you into this sort of, can I call it woo-woo realm? Is that a little far-fetched to say?
No, it's not. I mean, I actually use that term all the time. I would say that for me, I was dealing with a lot of like residual effects of just having like a really traumatic early life. And so I was just looking for things that were going to help, right? And I tried a lot of like talk therapy, and it just was not doing it for me. I was like an intellectualizer, however you say that. So I could talk about the things that had happened to me like until I was blue in the face, but like I wasn't actually like making progress or making change in my life. So I've just been really open-minded and curious to try to like find what actually will work for me. And then every time I've found something that has actually worked, I've gotten really excited and I want to share it with other people. So I would say that that's what led me to woo-woo world, because clinical world wasn't doing it for me.
I completely understand. Whenever I say the term woo-woo, is that offensive to that type of community, or is that okay to say?
That's a good question.
I hear from like an inside the box expression, like all of those tools are woo-woo, but can you use a better terminology that could be more expansive?
I would say alternative maybe, or right-brained or creative, because I think that that's the thing, is that it kind of became a derogatory term from the more clinical left-brained Western medicine side of just society, I guess.
Yeah.
They want to kind of like demonize anything that they don't understand. But I would say that too, there's also people that are on the extreme on the other side, and they're not listening to side. So I feel like, like kind of balancing and finding a good balance. So I would just say like, maybe alternative. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And it's almost spiritual as well.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Right.
You were mentioning the different tools. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about human design, astrology? What are some of those? What are some of your favorite tools that you use? And can you tell me a little bit about them?
Okay, so for sure, I would say that astrology, human design, and gene keys are by far my favorite tools. They actually kind of placated to my more left brain side of things, where there was like a lot for me to read and research and understand. There's a lot of like just data, just information to like really sink my teeth into, and that's just kind of part of who I am. I just really love like a good thing to research.
Yeah.
But what I would say that like the reason why they're my favorite is because it's all kind of like the overall meaning or purpose is to help you discover more about yourself. And I do think that a lot of the times, like I guess this is my approach to these tools, rather than somebody who might study them and take them in a very like dogmatic way, where they're just like, this means this and I have to like follow this very rigidly.
Yeah.
I look at it as more of like an experimentation tool. So it's kind of like, how do I play around with this, like this thing, this archetype that I'm learning about myself, and discover if it's true for me or not. And if it is, then it's going to help me have like a greater self-understanding, and therefore I will feel more authentic. And in my opinion, when we talk about like spirituality, authenticity to me is like the highest vibration. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So whenever you talk about authenticity being the highest vibration, can you explain kind of like why is that?
Okay.
Or paint the picture. Paint the picture of why these tools and like learning the knowledge behind the tools is helpful to getting to your authentic self, and then why should we be authentic? Why can't we just
just be whatever. Okay, so like I would say that when you are growing up in life, you're very open, you're very moldable. This is because you're very dependent. You're dependent on your family, you're dependent on your culture, on your peers, right? Like the kids that you go to school with, are they going to pick on you or not? And so you become very impressionable because you're just trying to survive and get by and fit in. So a lot of the times when we're in our like early 20s, sometimes into your 30s, 40s, whatever, sometimes into your 60s, you think that who you are is actually like a mosaic of just all of that, right? Like all of that conditioning and stuff that people handed to you. And then why I think it's the highest vibration, like a lot of people talk about high vibe and they're like, you know, oh, it's being really positive and saying like positive affirmations and stuff. But sometimes the most like authentic, moving, alchemic, like changing, transformative thing you can do is actually cry or just be like with yourself in your actual emotions and your heaviness and like how you actually feel on the inside. And a lot of the times we want to ignore that and we just want to like repress it and distract ourselves from it. And in my opinion, that's not high vibe, right? Because it's not real.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you found yourself getting into those moments where you haven't felt your authentic self and you had to get back into kind of, how do you get back into that zone?
Well, okay, so I would say that that's something that I still haven't mastered, right? Like, yeah, it's a hard thing to do because, you know, society just is society. It's going to keep on doing its thing. But what I have found helpful is almost like a alter ego. And that's kind of like what I talked to you about before. So there is the concept of an alter ego, and I have like my own qualms about the problems with that because a lot of the people that adopt an alter ego, again, it's kind of based on like what will make people like me, right? But the way that I kind of think about it is like, how am I going to feel like myself when I go into this thing? And I do like little rituals. I have like little totems that I might wear just to kind of like get me into that headspace of authenticity before I go into a social setting. Because again, it's so easy to like lose yourself as soon as you are around people.
Yeah, I completely understand. There are certain characters that I like, they're authentic, they're archetypes. Like I am a different person whenever I'm lifting in my CrossFit gym. I try to be the hot CrossFit gym girlfriend, you know, like walking around, you know, oh, I'm tough. I'm gonna lift super heavy today because I don't know who's watching, you know, you know, kind of spice things up just for like my own zone, like kind of like the hot girl summer vibes, if you will. It gets me more motivated. But then whenever I'm walking into like a networking event, it's okay. And it's not that it's a different person. It's just me adapting into a different archetype.
Right.
It's still an authentic version of myself. You know, networking events are different too because I go in there and I put a mask on, and it's like, okay, who can I talk to and how many sales pitches can I listen to in a matter of 2 hours? And also everybody's drinking and it's like very foggy for the brain. For, you know, those conversations just kind of seem very masked up. So I like how you describe this, you know, but that's how we're supposed to try to find our fun, you know, that's how we get our next lead sometimes. So we'll talk a little bit about the archetypes, and then I want to move the conversation into a tool that you mentioned earlier, human design. I think that she's going to read my human design chart with us. So, tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, so human design is cool because it is basically a combination of a bunch of different tools and modalities. So it draws its influence from astrology, from the I Ching, and from the Kabbalah. So it's in the chakra system. So it's like a lot of different, like the way that I like to explain it in a very simple way is if you're familiar with astrology or your astrology chart at all, it's basically that inside of your body. So it's like, rather than being just like a strictly mental thing, it's actually very much about how do you get out of the mental and into your body.
Yeah.
The whole thing, and this is kind of where I want to segue into your chart, because the whole entire thing was invented under a premonition that the creator had. His name was Ra. And he says in the year 2027, we're going to be going through a huge shift as humanity where we're going from like basically a 400-year cycle where we've been very left-brained and very much like planning and building and external, right? Like external government that we give our power to, religion that we give our power to, like all of these things outside of ourselves. And we're moving to a time where that spirituality and that authority and that like sovereign sense of self is all going to be like in our individual selves.
Yeah.
And because of this, it's going to help us like build community that's more authentically aligned. So like rather than like, oh, I have to go see my family because they're my family. You know, it's going to be like, who's your soul family? And your soul family because your guys' like paths actually align, right? So that's actually your cross.
Okay. Yeah, dive into
Okay.
it. So human design, it's blending astrology, chakras, all of these different things, and it's a personality typing.
Yes.
If you had to dumb it down to bottom level, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as, so it's kind of tricky to figure out how it might like very surface level. I would say that it is a tool to understand yourself better aside from the conditioning, right? So like all the things we've been talking about so far in this conversation, that's the essence of this tool. It's like, how do you see what is actually you versus like what has been handed to you from your culture and your family of origin? And yeah, is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that describes it. Once we
Okay.
get more into it, we'll kind of
Perfect.
unravel.
Perfect. So, and I don't know if like cameras can see what they look like, but that's what a chart looks
Cool.
like.
I could always pop it up on the screen.
Okay,
later.
cool. So this is what your chart looks like, and you can see like you have all of these different, like I know there's like a lot of numbers and a lot of like information here. So to kind of like dwindle it down, and again, kind of just assuming maybe someone has basic understanding of astrology, when someone asks you what's your sun, moon, and rising, like that would be like the most basic form of your astrology chart, right?
Right.
In the human design world, it's what's your type, what's your profile, and what's your authority.
Okay. So my basic energy role.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So you are a manifesting generator. What that means is that you have your sacral chakra defined, and that means that you are meant to respond to life. So you magnetize life to you through your aura, and when it comes to you, you have a very gut reaction to it. That's either a yes or a no, and it feels different for everyone. That's something I like to experiment with generators, and then you respond yes or no from your body, right? Instead of your head, like instead of thinking like, oh, I should do this, it's more like, do I want to actually do this? And then they say that like, you know, if you follow that, then you're going to feel satisfied in life. And if you ignore it and you get back into your head again, you're going to feel frustrated.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Does
What are the
that
other,
track?
that does track. That does track because I'll get myself into some situations and, you know, it might feel really good at the beginning and then I'm like, I don't know about this anymore. I need to offload.
Yeah.
Or, you know, not necessarily abandoning ship, but just kind of, okay, this isn't what exactly I pictured in mind.
Yeah.
What are the other energetic levels? There's manifester. Can you kind of walk through manifest, generator, all of those different ones?
So manifester, they're here to initiate. So they use their voice and they command and they tell people what's up. And they're very creative. Like they're meant to kind of like create things in the world. So a manifesting generator, you have kind of both of those within your body, meaning that first and foremost, always the generator thing comes first. So always responding. But then once you respond, then you can also vocalize that and like inform the people around you.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then that like, you know, create. And so because of that, a manifesting generator, apart from just a generator, they're very much like time benders. They see things in a like efficient way. So you're kind of just like super speeding through life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
When you're using your strategy and authority. And then the only other two types are you have your projectors. They have no sacral authority and they have an aura that's very penetrating. So if you know a projector, sometimes you can kind of feel off put by them because you're like, ooh, you're getting all up in my aura.
Yeah, all up in my business.
Yeah, but the reason why is because they're here to guide. So they're really good at sensing your sacral energy and like showing you how to embody that and like listen to your own internal guidance system. And then last we have reflectors, which is what I am, and we are completely open. So like you see like how you have some of these colored in spots. I have none of that. So like my whole chart is completely open and blank. And reflectors are here to kind of like gauge the collective. So we kind of like act as like barometers and they call us like a canary in a coal mine, meaning that like when things are kind of off with the collective, we really like feel that.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. And then so your type explains how your energy naturally works and how you interact with the world. That's awesome. So there's another key part there's two more key parts, the strategy and the authority. Would you mind walking us through what strategy is?
Okay, yeah. So strategy is kind of like what I told you about responding. So like your strategy is to respond. It's all based on your aura and how your aura works. So since you're pulling things towards you, you are meant to like respond as those things come to you, rather than a manifestor is meant to initiate. They're not waiting for something to come.
Okay.
They're just taking action and doing. A projector is meant to wait for an invitation. Since their aura is so penetrating, it's kind of like if they don't wait to be asked for their advice, it can kind of not land, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then a reflector, we're meant to wait 28 days because we have to feel feel all of the openness throughout a lunar cycle.
That makes sense. Okay, well, authority, I understand that it's how you make your best decisions. Can you kind of read my chart and tell me what authority I'm in, what I've signed up for?
Okay, perfect. So you have emotional authority. And like I said too about how your incarnation cross is the same as an incarnation cross, it just means kind of like it's your energetic like print on the world. And it's the same as this new 400-year cycle that we're going into. And that is because it is going to be a more emotional cycle. So like I said, kind of like since we've been in like a left-brained era, we're moving into a more right-brained era.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, all emotional authority people have something we call an emotional wave.
Okay.
And basically, the things are very unclear within this wave, and it can go one of two ways, because both of my kiddos have emotional authority, so I'm speaking from experience here. I have one kiddo whose wave goes up, so she gets very like reactive emotionally, and then my other kiddo's wave goes down. She gets very like she needs alone time. She needs to like go be by herself and like process her emotions. But the strategy with having emotional authority is to wait until the wave has passed before you make any big decisions or talk to anyone. You are meant to kind of hermit and go inward in those waves, because there is something that it's trying to show you and teach you. And when you come out the other side of it, you have a lot more like clarity. So cool. Yeah.
Okay. I am pretty emotional. That's okay, right?
No, yeah, totally.
What are the other examples of authority? I know you had mentioned like sacral earlier, but what are the other?
Yeah, so sacral authority, which you still have sacral authority as well. It's just that it could also be dictated on your emotional wave as well, if that makes sense. So maybe you can't trust your sacral authority because you're in an emotional wave.
Yeah.
Other people have splenic authority, which is on the other side. So rather than it being emotional, it's very intuitive. It's very like fight, flight, or fawn, or freeze response in the moment. It's very in the moment. So it's like they have to be more in tune and aware of like these are the kinds of people that would be really good to practice meditation, because they need to be very like present and aware to get those subtle hits of intuition. As to where for you, it's kind of like just flowing, you're just kind of like flowing through all of the different emotions. And also that's your life's work. So like you're meant to really be feeling it all.
Yeah, great. I love that. It's interesting to learn. Can you kind of guide somebody that, like for me, I do feel big emotions. I just had Brent on my last episode and I was in tears because he's moving. How is that something that you do in your, you can like advise people on how to deal with emotions and kind of guide them with that? Yeah, so like even like with what you just said, the first thing that comes to me is like a lot of us are programmed and conditioned that emotions are bad because they're inefficient, I think, is how our culture looks at them, but besides just the bad emotions that you might feel, think about maybe all the times that you get emotional because of like you're in a group of people that are all there for the same cause, or like when you see something like really beautiful that reminds you of your faith in humanity, or like when a song really just like moves you, so like our emotions aren't bad, right? And so I would like encourage you, again, like if we're going back to like the archetypal thing, I would encourage you to think of your emotions as like creative fuel, and how can you ride the good ones and the low ones and really like find your sense of self within your emotional place, and like how do you embrace that even when you're around people who might shame you or give you side eyes or feel uncomfortable by your emotions. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, that's a unique way of looking at it because emotions really are a tool that you can use. There's so much to do with human design. Did you want to get into anything specific on the chart?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I circled some things to kind of keep me focused. I also circled some things that I thought were interesting, and I might also kind of bring in gene keys, but I want to kind of preface and say that gene keys essentially is human design. It's just like all of these gates that you have, it goes into those more deeply.
Okay.
So with that being said, your incarnation cross, again, like your imprint that you're meant to leave here in the world, has 4 components or 4 gates or 4 gene keys, right? And so the first one is your life's work, and that is really about that like sense of spirit from within, and that writing those emotional highs and lows and being very like emotionally creative. And then your earth placement is opposite of that. It is like your challenge or your shadow work or like your evolution to grow. And for that one, it's the gate of intimacy. So it's all about like just very honest expression, very much like yeah, we can like say things to placate each other, but it's like, no, let's like get past that. And like, how are you really feeling? You know, like I'm sure when you ask someone like, hi, how are you? Like you really want to know, how are you?
Yeah. I hate small talk. Yeah. I preach that a lot. Actually, our little Facebook group is built on we don't like small talk and we just want to get to deeper, meaningful conversations. So that's awesome.
You know, and just to kind of say real quick too, coming from like a background where I did a lot of networking and like stuff for the chamber, and knowing how performative sometimes that can feel, and you go home and you just kind of want to like crash. Yeah. That was something really refreshing about going to any Manifest Omaha like occasion, because it didn't ever feel that way.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So I can see how you bring that, because you're also a 4th line in those gates, which means that you're building community, you're networking, you're forming connections, all within those energies, right? Of like what do you have to bring to the table, and like who actually are you, and how can we get deep with each other?
Yeah.
On the other side, on like the more bodily side of you, you are a 6th line, which means that you go through 3 phases in life. So you have your first 30 years where you are very experimental, probably making a lot of mistakes. And then you have your second, and this is all based on Saturn too, by the way. So it's like your Saturn return is kind of when things shift. So your first Saturn return, like around age 30, you go into a more hermity side of yourself where you're just kind of like, okay, I'm done making mistakes. I've learned a lot of lessons, and I'm going to really hone in on those lessons and like focus in on them. And you're doing that for like the next 30-ish years. And then after that, you're meant to be like a wise old sage. And they call it like, you know, you're just like on the roof and you're like seeing things from a higher perspective. And in those gates, it's very much about staying present in the moment. And there's a gate here that has to do with force, and it basically means like, rather than like, you have a force from within you, so like rather than trying to like control things externally, you just get very well acquainted with the force from within. It sounds very like Star Wars, and let that kind of like dictate things for you in your life. So that's interesting. And then I don't know how much.
No, you're good. We have about 4 minutes. Is there anything that like completely stood out that was like, you know, you don't see very often on my chart?
Yeah. Okay. 2 things. The 2 most interesting things to me was that you have a completely open identity center. So like, you know, having like an undefined center would be like this. So it's like, it's open, but you still have some gates here that are defined. Having a completely open center is kind of like my aura, but within just that center. So it basically means that you're really receptive and open in this area, and you're taking in the energies of other people and you're amplifying them. Okay. So this is in the area of identity for you, which tells me that you have a very fluid identity. Kind of like you said, I think you would really jive well with the work I do, because it's like you can already conceive the conceptual idea of like having different archetypes for like different things in life, if that makes sense. But it also means that you're really supposed to embrace that. So like, you're not the type of person that's supposed to have like a fixed purpose or a fixed sense of self. Like, it's always going to be kind of like moving and changing. Okay. Whenever we have completely open centers too, it also means that we can deal with a lot of projection from others. So it just means that people might like try to tell you who you are. And so that would be something I would like encourage you to,
Good luck.
Yes. So we always want to be like protective to over our centers that are completely open. The other thing that I found really interesting about your chart is that you have your Venus and your Mars in gate 41. And that gate is the only, what they call in Gene Keys is a start codon. So So like if you think of like your genes, like you have some genes that tell other genes to stop making things, and then you have some genes that tell other genes to start making things, and it's the only one, and you have that in two very prominent placements. That just tells me that you're like very you have like a vision for the future, and you're probably like ahead of your time in that way. So you see things before they're even here, and help bring those things to fruition in life. So the shadow of that one is fantasy. It's when it's like it's not really real yet, so it's all in your head.
Are you saying that I live in a fantasy world?
Well, I have this one too, and so I can say I sometimes am guilty of living in a fantasy world. But the gift is anticipation. So it basically means whatever you conceptualize up here, that means it is possible, right? So if you really believe that, like, then it turns from like, this isn't just a fantasy, like I am doing the things because I anticipate this thing is going to come true. So what do I need to do to like prepare for its birth, right?
Yeah, and that ties into being a manifest generator, right? Like I see something, I want something, it's already mine. I just have to get kind of tricky, what's the word? Tricky to get it. Like, I don't know, what's the word? Just have
creative
to get
is what
creative.
Comes,
yeah, I have to get creative to kind of get to wherever I'm going. Normally, I'm trying to get there, and then I lose track of it. I've got too many fantasy lands going on at the same time. Well, we've got about a minute left. For anybody that's interested in kind of exploring, all of these tools that are out in, available. You were talking about gene keys, human design, all of the things. What's your best advice for those people?
Okay, well, I would say just to kind of first and foremost, to wrap up everything that I've said, I think that a lot of the times, like the reason why I felt like these were good tools to help me heal, and I think help others heal, is because a lot of the times when we have complex trauma, we have a very shattered or broken sense of self. And so that's why these tools are so healing, because it is all about this like internal self-exploration that I think is so healing for people. So just to say that first and foremost, like if you feel that way, that this might be like a really good path for you to go down. And if it is something that you're interested in, I mean, like just to try to say like, yeah, start studying all the things. It's kind of hard because there literally is like a giant plethora of things that you can self-study. If you're not a self-study type of person, like if you are, just Google, right? Like we have so many tools, you can start pretty much anywhere. But if you're not a self-researcher like I am, and you're kind of more of a person who doesn't want to really dig deep into those things, and you would rather just know how it could benefit you without having to do all the research, then I would suggest myself. And you can get a reading with me, and we can start there. And I think I'm pretty good at getting people started into these modalities, or at least kind of like leaving the jargon to the side and just like getting to what it is that you're dealing with and setting you in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Curiosity Collective. It was awesome.
Thank you, Sam. This is awesome.
Of course.
Bye.
Bye.